A VIP of Vengeance. The story of Victoria Vance. Hello, everyone. If you've ever been underestimated, this is the story for you. A story of betrayal, vengeance, and the power to reclaim your own destiny. Hit like, subscribe, and get ready for a night that will change everything. Let's begin. Victoria Vance looked at the gleaming skyscraper of Sterling Global with her heart pounding. It had been 8 years. 8 long years since she had last walked this part of New York. She adjusted the lapel of her navy blue suit and looked at her reflection in her compact mirror. At 33, she barely recognized the person she had become. The naive, 22-year-old art student with paint-stained fingers was gone. In her place was a woman with a sharp gaze and a smile that seemed hard-won. "Mom, are we late?" The voice beside her brought her back to the present. Mason, her 7-year-old son, looked up at her with those stunning blue eyes, identical to his father's. "Of course not, darling. We're perfectly on time." Victoria ran her fingers gently through his blonde hair. "Remember what I told you? This meeting is very important for Mom's new job." "At Sterling Global," Mason articulated. "You worked there before I was born?" "Yes, that's right," Victoria replied, her throat tight. What she had hidden from him was that Sterling Global belonged to his father, a father who didn't even know of his existence. "Are you ready?" Victoria asked. Mason nodded, and she intertwined her small hand in his as they walked through the revolving doors. The lobby was exactly as she remembered, a blend of glass and steel that exuded a cold elegance. The memories flooded her, overwhelming and relentless. She had walked through those doors for the first time as a 22-year-old art consultant, hired to curate the company's vast art collection. It was in that very place that she met Raphael Sterling, the 31-year-old CEO who had taken the reins of his father's company. "How can I help you today?" The receptionist's voice snapped her out of her reverie. "Hello, Victoria Vance. I have an appointment with Mr. Pierce for 10 o'clock sharp." The receptionist's fingers glided gracefully over the keyboard. "Yes, Ms. Vance. Mr. Pierce is expecting you on the 42nd floor." Victoria nodded slightly. "Thank you very much." As they rode the elevator up, Mason pressed his face against the glass, watching the city get smaller. Victoria closed her eyes, allowing herself to remember the moment she met Raphael. It was at an art auction. She was there to bid on a piece for a client when she saw him across the room, tall, impeccably dressed, with a presence that commanded attention effortlessly. After he had outbid her client for a Rothko, she approached him, determined to negotiate. "$60 million for a Rothko," she said, stepping into his path. "You overpaid by at least $15 million. He looked at her with those stunning blue eyes, first with surprise and then with amusement. "You must be Victoria Vance, consultant for Fonseca Gallery. I'm Raphael Sterling." He extended his hand, and when she shook it, an undeniable spark flew between them. "I'd pay double for the perfect piece," he said. 3 weeks later, he hired her to curate Sterling Global's collection. 6 months later, they were engaged. A year later, they were married in a lavish ceremony that appeared in every high society magazine. The elevator chimed, pulling Victoria back to reality. As she stepped out onto the executive floor, she braced herself for what was to come. It had been 8 long years since she last saw Raphael, not since that fateful rainy night when everything fell apart. "Ms. Vance." A man in his early 40s approached them, extending his hand. "I'm Edward Pierce, the head of acquisitions. I appreciate your presence here today." "I appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Pierce," Victoria said, as she shook his hand. "This is my son, Mason." "A pleasure to meet you, young man," Edward said, shaking Mason's hand with an exaggerated formality that made the child smile. "I've made arrangements for Mason to stay in our waiting lounge. Laura from Human Resources will accompany him. We have a variety of books, a tablet with games, and plenty of snacks." Victoria hesitated, uncertainty flaring in her mind. That's very thoughtful, however. It's okay, Mom, Mason reassured her. I brought my book about the wonders of space. Victoria knelt down to look him in the eyes. I won't be long. Be nice to Laura, okay? Mason nodded, and Victoria saw a kind-looking woman guide him to a cozy seating area that was visible through a glass partition. Your son seems to be quite well adjusted, Edward commented as they walked toward the conference room. Yes, Victoria replied. For a long time it was just the two of us. Raising a child alone has its challenges. Edward's voice had a tone of understanding. My sister is doing it with twins. I don't know how she manages. Victoria said matter-of-factly that you do what's necessary for your children. Arriving at the conference room, Edward held the door for her. Victoria took a deep breath and stepped across the threshold. 5 executives were gathered around the table, but her gaze went instantly to the man at the head of the table, Raphael Sterling. He looked more mature, with silver threads at his temples, but otherwise he was still the same, still incredibly attractive, still radiating the same quiet strength. For a moment, their eyes met, and she found no hint of familiarity in his. Slowly, his demeanor shifted from a curious courtesy to utter astonishment. This is Victoria Vance, Edward mentioned, the marketing consultant I told you about. Her contributions to Corona were truly exceptional. What is going on? Raphael's voice cut across the room with precision. What kind of game are you playing? Edward looked puzzled. I'm sorry, I don't understand what you mean. It's all right, Edward, Victoria said, her voice steady, though her heart was racing. I have met Mr. Sterling before. Met before? Victoria was my loving wife. Raphael rose, his palms pressed firmly against the table. The room fell silent. Edward looked at them with his mouth agape in disbelief. He really had no idea her maiden name? After the divorce, I went back to my maiden name, Victoria explained, her gaze fixed on Raphael. Everyone out, Raphael muttered in a low voice. When there was no response, he raised his tone. The executives scrambled to their feet, gathering their tablets and documents before exiting the room. Edward paused at the threshold, giving Victoria a look of remorse before gently closing the door behind him. For a long while, Raphael and Victoria simply stared at each other. After 8 long years, he finally spoke, his tone unexpectedly soft. After 8 years of silence, you have the audacity to walk into my company with deceptive intentions? I haven't lied about anything, Victoria replied. Edward reached out to me after reviewing my portfolio. It was only after our first meeting that I realized he was part of your team. So, you didn't think to mention it then? You would have chosen me, had you known? Raphael's laugh was harsh. Absolutely not. Then your response is clear. Victoria placed her portfolio on the table. Besides, my work is a testament to my skills. The Corona's campaign saw a remarkable 22% growth in their market share. I don't care if you brought the dead back to life, Raphael spat. You disappeared for 8 long years, Victoria. No calls, no messages, no correspondence. You simply vanished. After you told me to get out of your life, Victoria reminded him. Her own frustration finally crept into her tone. After your accusations about actions I would never consider. After you threw me away as if I was worthless, you left, he responded. You never made an effort to save our marriage. An effort? Victoria let out a harsh laugh. You had security kick me out of our home in the middle of the night. Our accounts were frozen. You had your lawyers serve me divorce papers during my parents' funeral. What was I supposed to deal with, Raphael? A brief glimpse of what might have been remorse crossed his face, only to be quickly obscured by the familiar icy facade she remembered from their last moments together. What brings you here, Victoria? Is that it? Victoria straightened her shoulders. For the position. Despite what you may believe, not everything revolves around you, Raphael. Just as he was about to reply, a knock resounded in the room, and the door opened to reveal Laura from Human Resources, her expression tinged with remorse. I apologize for the interruption, Mr. Sterling, but it's all right, Laura, Victoria said, looking at the door. Is everything okay with Mason? He's perfectly fine, Laura reassured her. He was just curious to know how much longer it would be. I'm on my way out, Victoria assured her. When Laura closed the door, Victoria turned to see Raphael, looking at her with a peculiar expression. Mason, he repeated. You have a son? Victoria held his gaze without flinching. Yes. How old is he? 7. Raphael's jaw tightened. 7. So, when did you get remarried? I didn't. His gaze sharpened as he contemplated in silence. 7 years. That would imply. His complexion turned pale. He's mine. The door opened once more, before Victoria could reply. And this time, it was Mason himself who peeked his head in. Mom, can I please have another juice box? Laura says I had to ask you. Victoria managed a smile. Absolutely, my love. Another one is fine. But Mason's gaze had shifted. His eyes were fixed on Raphael, his forehead furrowed in deep concentration. You're Mr. Sterling? Raphael appeared paralyzed, staring at the child who mirrored his own stunning blue eyes. Yes, I am. Mason walked into the room with purpose, extending his hand, as he had been taught. My name is Mason Vance. It's a pleasure to meet you. Raphael instinctively reached out, grasping the small hand with a gentle squeeze. It's a pleasure to meet you too, Mason. Mason tilted his head. You look like the man in my mom's old pictures. Victoria felt her heart turn to ice. Mason, why don't you go back with Laura? I'll be finished soon. Okay. Mason headed for the door, but hesitated for a moment before stepping through it. Mr. Sterling, are you interested in space? Raphael seemed to struggle to choose his words. Yes, I am. Me too, Mason replied. A radiant smile lit up his face. I aspire to be an astronaut in the future, and with that, he disappeared, leaving behind a profound silence. Raphael confronted Victoria, his face a storm of feelings. He's mine. Although it was not a question, Victoria chose to reply anyway. Yes, you kept him from me. For a period of 7 years. 8, Victoria corrected softly. I was already expecting when I left. Raphael's hand slammed against the table with a thud. Your actions were unjustified. I had every right. I had every right, Victoria retorted. Your intentions were unequivocally transmitted. You desired to get away from me. They were not falsehoods, Victoria. I reviewed the emails. I noticed the transactions from our accounts to your personal one. €500,000 drained in a period of 6 months. Subsequently, the communications to John about meeting in Rio de Janeiro, once you had managed your affairs. Victoria let out a harsh laugh. Did it ever occur to you to ask about it? May I have the opportunity to present my perspective? What needed clarification? My wife was robbing me and plotting to run away with my closest friend. Your friend? Victoria emphasized. I only had a fleeting familiarity with John Morgan. He was your confidant from boarding school, your partner in fishing adventures. Throughout our entire marriage, I had maybe 10 conversations with him. The emails were fraudulent. Victoria interrupted abruptly. If you had only granted me 5 minutes to present my case, I could have proven my point clearly. Raphael stared at her. What could motivate someone to fabricate emails between you and John? Victoria said bluntly. To get rid of me. To drive a wedge between us. And it worked splendidly. You were so eager to assume the negative about me. A flicker of uncertainty passed across Raphael's expression. If what you say holds any weight, then why didn't you stand up to it? What could lead someone to disappear for 8 years? Victoria took a sip of her wine, weighing her words with precision. When the person you cherish most in life throws you away without a moment's hesitation, it changes you. My heart broke. I found myself expecting a baby and suddenly, penniless. Confronting you and your team of legal experts wasn't exactly at the top of my agenda. You were expecting a baby, Raphael repeated. His voice was empty. Accompanied by my little one. You never mentioned it to me. Would it have made a difference? Victoria challenged him. Or would you have thought I was trying to trap you? As for the baby not being yours, Raphael flinched. I would never do that. You wouldn't have, Victoria insisted. You thought I might commit theft and betrayal without any real proof? Why not include baby trapping in the list? Just as Raphael was about to respond, the waiter reappeared with their appetizers, creating a brief pause in the conversation. Once they were alone again, Raphael's voice emerged, soft and contained. Mason seems extraordinary, intelligent, perfectly poised. She agreed, unable to hide the pride in her tone. At the top of his class, he has an attention span for a fifth grader, fascinated by the cosmos and the wonders of science, exactly like me, Raphael murmured softly. When I was a boy, I dreamed of exploring the cosmos as an astronaut. Victoria nodded. You mentioned it once, after our trip to the New York Space Center during our honeymoon. A fleeting smile played on Raphael's lips. You remember that? I remember everything, Raphael. Silence enveloped them, thick with memories and unspoken things. Tonight, she finally revealed. He asked about you. Mason, you unearthed a collection of old photographs. He asked if you were his father. Raphael's fork clinked against his plate. What did you tell him? The truth. That from a biological standpoint, that is accurate. Biologically, Raphael repeated. His jaw tightened, as if that were all. At this moment, that's all it is, Victoria pointed out. You didn't fulfill the role of a father in any meaningful sense, because you didn't give me the opportunity, Raphael retorted, frustration returning to his tone. What comes next? Now that you have this knowledge about him, what do you desire, Raphael? Truly, Raphael leaned back in his chair, his face a mask of inscrutability. I desire to better know my son. I desire for him to truly understand me. I have already lost 7 years of his life. I cannot bear to lose any more. What suggestions do you have for achieving that? Our home is in Boston. Your existence is currently unfolding here. Move back, Raphael instructed matter-of-factly. I will arrange for you to have an apartment. I will cover the costs of Mason's education. We can establish a custody agreement. Victoria let out a laugh filled with disbelief. Is it really that simple? Do you truly believe I would completely uproot our lives just because you've now chosen to assume the role of a father? He's my son, Raphael asserted, his voice rising a little. He's my son, Victoria insisted. I was the one who raised him. I was the one who stood by him through his sickness, who guided him through the pages of books, who soothed his scraped knees with gentle kisses and banished the shadows that lurked beneath his bed. You're merely a master of genetics. The glint of anguish in his gaze brought a perverse pleasure to Victoria. Excellent! Let him feel pain. Let him experience even a small part of what she had endured. I have rights, Raphael said softly. Rights under the law. Are you insinuating something threatening? Victoria asked, her voice tinged with a dangerous softness. I am merely presenting a fact, Raphael replied. If you push me, I will take legal action. Given my resources, who do you think will emerge victorious? A chill ran through Victoria's body. This was the Raphael that lingered in her memory from those final moments, coldly precise, wielding his authority as if it were a sword. Would you really subject Mason to that? A custody battle? I don't want to, Raphael said. However, I will if it is necessary. Victoria laid her napkin aside, an idea beginning to form in her thoughts. What if I decide to stay in New York for a while? A trial period? Why don't you dedicate time to getting acquainted with Mason and explore how things unfold? Raphael appeared surprised by her admission. You would do that? For Mason's benefit? Victoria commented, observing him intently. Only if you agree to my conditions. What are they? Initially, we proceed with caution. You refrain from revealing that you are his father right away. Build a connection with him first. Raphael nodded hesitantly. That seems reasonable. What else? I'm seeking employment, Victoria expressed. A genuine one, not an act of charity. I've invested so much effort into my career that I won't abandon it now. I'm afraid I cannot hire you at Sterling Global, Raphael stated without any emotion. This appears to be too complex, Victoria agreed. Not at Sterling Global. However, you possess valuable connections. What I seek is simply 1 or 2 introductions. Raphael watched her intently for a prolonged period. What about the third condition? Victoria maintained her focus on him. Complete financial transparency regarding Sterling Global. If I'm considering linking Mason's future to your company, I must be certain of its stability. That's ridiculous, Raphael scoffed. My company stands out as one of the most successful in the country. If that is the case, then you have nothing to conceal from me, Victoria commented, shrugging her shoulders. These are my conditions. Raphael narrowed his eyes. His gaze sharpened. What makes this seem like the true motivation for your presence? What game are you involved in, Victoria? No game, Victoria said with a practiced ease. Simply safeguarding my son's well-being. Are we in agreement then? Raphael paused. His suspicion was evident regarding her unexpected willingness to help. I seek joint legal custody ultimately, he commented, as he noticed the change in Victoria's demeanor. After Mason and I have built a connection, Victoria feigned reflection on it. Let's delve into that. After the trial period, what's the duration? Victoria proposed a 3-month period. This should provide us with sufficient time to determine if this arrangement is viable. Raphael inclined his head with a stiff gesture. Very well. 3 months. He extended his hand across the table. We have a deal. Victoria grasped his hand, struggling to maintain a calm facade, even as waves of victory surged within her. Her fingers brushed against his with a sense of familiarity, momentarily bringing back memories of the man she had once loved, before ambition and paranoia had transformed him into a stranger she could no longer identify. To new beginnings, Raphael declared, raising his glass of wine. To new beginnings, Victoria repeated, clinking her glass against his, her mind drifting to definitive endings. The rest of the meal unfolded in a strange choreography of decorum, interspersed with fleeting reminders of their once close connection. Raphael shared with her the story of his mother's passing, which had occurred 2 years prior. The news struck Victoria with a deep sense of sadness, as Leonore Sterling had always shown her kindness. Victoria recounted carefully selected stories from Mason's formative years, watching the mixture of happiness and sorrow that flickered across Raphael's face with each milestone he hadn't experienced. When dessert was served, Victoria noticed that Raphael was beginning to lower his guard. When he smiled at the tale of 5-year-old Mason, attempting to construct a spaceship out of cardboard boxes, it was a genuine smile, the kind that had previously made her heart race. He really does remind me of myself at that age, Raphael commented, shaking his head in wonder. My mother often told stories of finding me asleep amidst a collection of space books and unfinished models. Victoria commented that he also captures your attention. Once he begins a task, he perseveres until it is completed, regardless of how long it takes him. Raphael acknowledged that stubbornness is a deeply ingrained trait in the Sterling lineage. After a moment of silence, I would like him to use my maiden name. And just like that, the fleeting cordiality vanished into thin air. That is not an option at this time, Victoria declared with conviction. He belongs to the Sterling family. Victoria, the one and only last descendant of my lineage. He's a Vance, Victoria clarified. That has been his essence for his entire existence, because you decided to keep him from me, Raphael reminded her, his voice tinged with new fury. We're not going to go through this again, Victoria commented, pushing her dessert plate away. The past is in the past. Let's keep our eyes on what lies ahead, shall we? Raphael let out a slow breath, clearly working to control his anger. Indeed, you're right. I apologize. He signaled for the waiter for the check. Could you remind me where you're staying? The mansion, right? A car will be arranged to take you back. That's not necessary, Victoria said. Rising. The night is quite pleasant. I'll take a walk. Raphael murmured something about her independence, leaving Victoria unsure whether his tone conveyed admiration or criticism. Outside the restaurant, an awkward silence lingered between them. I appreciate the dinner, Victoria commented, with a touch of formality. When will I be able to see Mason? Raphael stood with his hands in his pockets, an uncharacteristic air of uncertainty about him. Victoria decided to take him to Central Park tomorrow, near the peaceful boat lake. Noon, Raphael nodded. I'll be there. He paused briefly before adding, For what it's worth, Victoria, it seems like an eternity since the last time we connected. The sudden revelation took her completely by surprise. After 8 years of meticulously planning her revenge and fortifying her heart against him, his simple words lingered, threatening to shatter her unwavering resolve. Good night, Raphael, she said, turning away before he could glimpse the confusion in her gaze. As she walked back to the hotel, Victoria's thoughts surged with intensity. A part of her felt triumphant. Everything was unfolding as planned. Raphael was already providing her with what she sought: moments in New York, entry into his kingdom, and soon, entry into Sterling Global. The financial documents, which her contact had alluded to, would soon be accessible. However, another aspect of her, one that she believed had vanished, stirred at the genuine pain reflected in Raphael's gaze as he recounted the lost years with his son. He had, after all, remembered her favorite wine. Through his sincere acknowledgement of his absence, she might have made a mistake. Was there a deeper narrative behind their separation that she was unaware of? Victoria dismissed the doubts with a decisive shake of her head. She couldn't allow herself tenderness now, not when she was so close to achieving her ambition. Raphael Sterling had broken her once. She refused to allow him the opportunity to repeat his actions. In her hotel room, she discovered Laura, engrossed in a magazine, while Mason slept placidly on his bed. How was it? Victoria murmured softly. An absolute dream, Laura replied, gathering her belongings. Extremely well-behaved and very intelligent. You truly outdid yourself with him, Ms. Vance. Thank you, Victoria said, as she walked her to the door. Thank you for being here to witness his performance tonight. Anytime, just let me know, Laura replied with a bright smile. My laptop is processing that software update you referred to, but it should be complete by morning. Excellent, Victoria commented, struggling to maintain a composed demeanor. Sweet dreams, Laura. Once the door clicked, Victoria rushed to her laptop to see what awaited her. The program had succeeded. Laura's USB drive was completely duplicated. Tomorrow, while Raphael enjoyed a joyful day with Mason in the park, Victoria would be meticulously uncovering the secrets that John Morgan had hidden all these years. John Morgan, Raphael's oldest companion, who was rumored to have been involved in a romantic relationship with Victoria. The man who had disappeared, leaving no trace 3 days after Raphael's decision to cast aside Victoria. A man found 2 weeks later in a hotel room in Rio de Janeiro, an apparent suicide. However, Victoria was aware of the truth. John was not responsible for his own death. He was aware of far more than he should have been, just as she was in this moment, and that knowledge was destined to bring Raphael Sterling to his knees. Victoria closed her laptop and walked to the window, looking at the gleaming New York skyline. For 8 years, vengeance had fueled her existence, her motivation to rise each day. Now that she was so close, why did she suddenly feel so bitter? She shot a fleeting glance at Mason, who lay in a peaceful sleep, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in the shadows. Was she making the right decision? Could her pursuit of vengeance ultimately lead her to the tranquility she craved, or simply lead her to additional losses with Mason in the forefront? After 8 long years, a spark of doubt entered Victoria's mind for the first time. Truth and redemption. Under the bright midday sun, Central Park shimmered with life as Mason ran forward, captivated by the small sailboats gracefully navigating the boat lake. Victoria watched him from a bench, her heart heavy with the revelation she had unearthed from Laura's files the night before. He really does have a passion for space, doesn't he? Victoria recognized Raphael's voice. No need to turn around. As she found her voice, she replied while he sat beside her. Raphael was dressed in jeans and a sweater, a sharp contrast to his typical corporate attire. He looked younger, resembling the man she had once fallen in love with. "You informed him what I would be present?" he asked, his gaze fixed on Mason with great interest. "Yes, he is aware that we are meeting with a friend of mine." Victoria paused, uncertainty flashing in her mind. "Raphael, before we head over there is something I need to discuss with you." "What exactly is it?" Victoria took a deep breath. "I uncovered something in the files I retrieved from Laura's USB drive." "Forgive me, what did you say?" "John didn't commit suicide, did he?" Victoria asked softly. Raphael's complexion faded to a ghostly shade. "What do you mean?" "I possess the emails, Raphael. The genuine ones, not the fakes that someone forwarded to you. John unearthed a revelation within Sterling Global's South American division. Illegal extraction activities, breaches of environmental regulations, and corrupt payments to officials." Victoria watched his expression intently. He was definitely going to blow the whistle, wasn't he? That's why he approached you. Raphael suddenly stood up. "This is utterly ridiculous. If you are attempting to coerce me," Victoria interrupted. "I'm not. I seek to comprehend the true events that unfolded. On the very day you left me, John approached me with this." She held up her phone, revealing an email she had hidden for 8 long years. "He was warning me, Raphael. He sensed that someone was orchestrating a plan to make me a scapegoat. I know the lens through which someone sees the world. Be wary of everyone, even your own kin. Tomorrow I have a meeting scheduled with the whistleblower. We will be in touch when it is safe. Delete this. Live." "He never called," Victoria murmured softly. 3 days later, he was discovered in Rio de Janeiro. And I found myself alone, carrying a life inside me, but feeling empty. Raphael slumped back onto the bench, his face pale and exhausted. "I didn't do it. Never." "What do you mean, never?" "Absolutely not. Or perhaps it was never ordered." Victoria's voice was unwavering. "I would have never harmed John," Raphael said, his voice thick with emotion. "He felt like family to me." "Then who was it?" she asked. Raphael ran his fingers through his hair. "It must have been Manuel, my senior from that time," Victoria remembered. "Your mother's cousin? The person who essentially took on the role of your guardian after your father's death?" "Yes, he was overseeing our operations in South America. If John discovered something." Raphael looked at her. Anguish was reflected in his eyes. "Victoria, you have to trust me. I didn't know." "But you thought I had betrayed you," Victoria said, the pain still fresh. "You thought I was stealing from you, betraying you, with your closest companion. You threw me away, without a moment's hesitation." "I was presented with evidence," Raphael said weakly. "You were presented with only what Manuel wanted you to see, what was more comforting to accept than the reality that the person who raised you and who you entrusted with your business was dishonest." Mason's laughter resounded over the lake, capturing their attention. He had successfully propelled one of the boats forward with an impressive push. How are you going to use this information? Raphael asked softly. Victoria had wondered that all night. Her initial strategy was well-defined. Uncover the deception within Sterling Global, tarnish Raphael's name, and reclaim all that he had unjustly taken from her. After 8 years of dedication, she was finally poised to achieve her dream. However, as she observed Mason's euphoria and Raphael's authentic astonishment and pain, she felt her resolve begin to falter. I'm not sure, she confessed. A part of me still longs to reduce your universe to ashes. I can't blame you, Raphael murmured softly. I let you down, Victoria. We let each other down. His confession caught her by surprise. The Raphael she remembered would never have assumed responsibility so easily. Mom, look! Mason waved, his enthusiasm palpable as he waved with fervor. Can I introduce my boat to Mr. Sterling? Victoria paused for a moment before giving a slight nod. Go ahead. Raphael stood still as Mason approached, a cautious smile on his lips. Hello, Mason. What an impressive vessel you have. It's the fastest, Mason proclaimed with pride. I realize that it is essential to position it perfectly in relation to the wind. Clever thinking, Raphael commented, crouching down to look Mason in the eyes. When I was a child, I also raced boats in this exact spot. Did you emerge victorious? Sometimes, Raphael confessed. However, there was a kid, Tom, who always managed to surpass me. What did you do? Raphael shared how he watched the boat's launch method, analyzed the technique, and then dedicated himself to practicing until he improved even further. Mason nodded solemnly. That's what my mom always says. Engaging in constant practice and sharp observation enhances your skills in any endeavor. Your mother possesses great wisdom, Raphael commented, as he looked at Victoria with a hint of admiration in his gaze. Would you like to try? Mason asked, extending an offer of his boat to Raphael. The modest act, this faint offer of faith, seemed to envelop Raphael. He took a deep breath before replying. It would be an honor. Victoria watched them as they headed for the lakeside, Raphael hanging on to every word as Mason detailed his launching technique. A sensation constricted itself within her chest. It wasn't pain, but rather a poignant longing for the possibilities that had slipped away. For an hour, she sat on the bench watching them as they raced boats, shared laughs, and engaged in animated discussions about space, science, and baseball. Mason, typically cautious with unfamiliar faces, seemed inexplicably drawn to Raphael, eliciting a mixture of warmth and discomfort in Victoria. She felt as though a fragment of her being recognized its father, although they had never crossed paths. Upon returning to the bench, Mason's cheeks glowed with euphoria. Mom, Mr. Sterling also knows Captain Nova. He possesses every comic, including the elusive ones. Is that really the case? Victoria responded, raising an eyebrow at Raphael. There are certain things you never outgrow, Raphael commented, a self-deprecating smile on his lips. Mason, may I have a moment to speak with your mother privately? Mason looked back and forth, his sharp wit kicking in at that moment. Is it about grown-up matters? Yes, Victoria confirmed. Why don't you see if you can beat your record for the fastest crossing? Once Mason was out of earshot, Raphael confronted Victoria, his demeanor serious. I must make this right, Victoria. In what way? The past 8 years are irreversible, Raphael conceded. However, I am prepared to accept responsibility for the events that transpired. As for Manuel's actions, taken in my name with my company, are you really willing to risk Sterling Global? Victoria harbored doubts. Your entire legacy? What kind of legacy are we talking about? Raphael asked with a sharp edge in his voice. Is this a business founded on deception? A fortune tarnished by wrongdoing? What kind of precedent would that set for Mason? Victoria scrutinized him closely, searching for any sign of dishonesty, but discovering nothing but determination. What exactly do you propose? Help me, Raphael declared bluntly. Help me organize my business. We will reveal the truth about Manuel, rectify any wrongs caused by our actions, and overhaul our entire approach if necessary. He took a moment to compose his thoughts. I refuse to lose my son again, Victoria. I refuse to be the one who allows this to go on any longer. What makes you trustworthy? Victoria challenged him. After all that transpired? How do you know? Raphael responded. The authentic version of myself, not the person I turned into when I allowed fear and a desire for success to cloud my clarity. Cautiously, he extended his hand. It seems a part of you still has some concern. Otherwise, we would not be engaged in this dialogue. You would have immediately taken your discoveries to the media. Victoria kept her hand exactly where it was. I came here seeking justice, Raphael. Then help me bring it about, he pleaded. The right way, not a retribution that inflicts pain on everyone, including Mason, but a form of justice that has the potential to heal some of the scars. Just as Victoria was about to respond, her phone suddenly rang. As she looked at the screen, a frown creased her forehead. It's Laura from Human Resources. How peculiar, he replied, and a chill ran through her as she heard the desperate tone of Laura's voice. I sincerely apologize, Ms. Vance. I'm not sure how it happened, but someone gained remote access to my computer last night. All my files were accessible, including the personnel files of the executive team. It appears that everything has been erased. It suggests that it appears to be a deliberate attack. Victoria's gaze shifted to Raphael. Someone asked for those particular files. That's the thing, Laura commented, her voice trembling. Just yesterday, Mr. Pierce asked for the old files belonging to Manuel Sterling. He mentioned that he had to review something from 5 years ago. Edward Pierce? Raphael asked, having overheard the conversation. The one in charge of acquisitions? Victoria's thoughts surged with intensity. Laura, could you tell me where Edward is at this moment? That's the reason I contacted you, Laura mentioned. He just emptied his office. Security reported that he left in a hurry about 20 minutes ago. Raphael had already risen. He referred to him as Manuel's protégé. His tone was heavy with seriousness. They always shared a strong bond. A terrible understanding settled in Victoria. If he realizes that we are onto them. They both looked around for Mason, but the area by the lake where he had been playing was deserted. Mason! Victoria's voice trembled as she called out to him. A wave of panic swelled within her. Mason! Raphael ran forward, his eyes flitting around the surroundings. Security, he commanded into his phone. I need a team at the boat lake in Central Park immediately. My son is missing. Victoria ran around the lake, shouting for Mason, her heart pounding in her chest. This was unimaginable. Not when they were so close to uncovering the truth. He's over there! Raphael gestured to a silhouette dressed in a dark coat, hurrying toward the park's exit, with a small figure writhing by his side. Mason! Victoria let out a heart-wrenching scream. The man pulled him onto his shoulder, and Edward Pierce quickened his steps, pulling Mason with him. Raphael launched himself after them, faster than Victoria had ever seen him move. She ran forward, her lungs on fire, fear propelling her with an unexpected swiftness. Edward approached the black sedan parked on the sidewalk and opened the door with a quick motion. Just as he was about to push Mason through the door, Raphael launched himself at him from behind. They crashed onto the pavement. Mason broke free and ran into Victoria's comforting embrace. Mom! He cried as she hugged him tightly. Raphael had Edward pinned, his expression twisted with fury. You plan to take my son? Edward spat out. Manuel's orders, for cover, if you and your ex-wife got too close to the truth. Police sirens blared in the distance as Raphael pulled Edward to his feet, keeping a strong grip on his neck. The truth has already been revealed, he snarled. It's over for you and Manuel. An unexpected end. 3 months later, Victoria stood in the doorway of Mason's new room, watching Raphael help him suspend a model of the solar system from the ceiling. Their laughter resonated in the space, igniting a spark in Victoria that had been long extinguished. Manuel Sterling was in federal custody, along with Edward Pierce and 3 other executives entangled in the corruption scandal. Raphael fulfilled his commitment. He approached the authorities directly, turned over all the information they possessed, and fully engaged in the investigation. Sterling Global faced challenges. However, with Raphael's openness and dedication to change, the company was gradually restoring its position. "Excellent," Raphael announced as they completed the placement of the final planet. "What do you think, Chief Engineer?" "It's fantastic," Mason declared. "Thank you, Dad." The words still ran through Victoria like a sudden shock. Mason had begun referring to Raphael as Dad only a few weeks ago, after they had finally clarified everything for him. A simple account of their past that acknowledged the mistakes made by both adults, while shielding him from the most problematic aspects. Raphael met Victoria's gaze over Mason's head. His expression was overflowing with appreciation. "Dinner's almost ready," she commented. "Clean up, cosmic adventurers." In the kitchen of the home they had purchased together, not as a reunited couple, but as co-parents dedicated to providing stability for Mason. Victoria stirred the pasta sauce and pondered how drastically her life had changed from what she had envisioned just 3 months prior. She realized that vengeance was a toxic force that threatened to ruin not only Raphael, but also herself, and perhaps Mason. Justice, in contrast, had unveiled a route to healing that no one had imagined could exist. "He really is finding his place, isn't he?" Raphael commented as he entered the kitchen. "He seems to appreciate the stability of having roots after all that time moving around," Victoria responded. "I think he's just happy to have both of us," Victoria replied. "It's hard to tell who is more excited to build that rocket model this weekend, you or him." Raphael smiled, the look appearing much more frequently now than when she had first returned to New York. "It was, without a doubt, me," he confessed. "Thank you, Victoria, for giving me this opportunity with him. Together we haven't quite gotten there yet," Victoria cautioned. Their connection was intricate, navigating the roles of friends and co-parents. However, the scars of the romance were too deep for a simple healing. "Nevertheless, we are heading in the right direction. That's all I can hope for," Raphael commented. After a moment of pause, he continued. "The Foundation is moving forward with the environmental restoration project in Brazil. The communities affected by our mining activities will receive the support they need." Victoria nodded, genuinely surprised by Raphael's ability to redirect his efforts toward rectification. She spoke softly. "John would be proud." Raphael nodded. "I feel the same. Each day I feel his absence deeply. I should have trusted him. I should have trusted you." "We can't change what has already happened," Victoria commented. The fury that had propelled her for so long was now a simple echo. However, there are lessons to be learned from it. She passed the plates to him to set the table. "Together we can create something extraordinary for Mason." During dinner, they enthusiastically absorbed Mason's account of his new school, his new friendships, and his intriguing science project on black holes. At times, the effortless family dynamic seemed almost dreamlike to Victoria, as if she could wake up from a dream at any moment. However, it was not a simple fantasy. It was an unexpected second chance for all of them. The opportunity arose not from revenge, but from the courageous and difficult decision to pursue truth and restoration instead. Once Mason had fallen asleep, Victoria found herself on the balcony, looking at the picturesque garden nestled behind their house. Raphael approached her, presenting a glass of wine. Chateau Margaux, her classic. To new beginnings, he proclaimed, echoing the toast from that memorable dinner 3 months prior. However, this time, the words radiated hope instead of hidden motives. To new beginnings, Victoria said, clinking her glass against his. In the quiet of the night, as the stars began to glimmer in the vast expanse above, Victoria pondered the path that had led them to this moment. She arrived in New York with a burning desire for retribution, believing it would mend the scars of betrayal. Instead, she discovered something far more profound: the strength to forgive not only Raphael, but also herself. Although revenge may have provided a fleeting sense of satisfaction for her anger, it would have ultimately left the three of them hollow inside. The essence of truth, the pursuit of justice, and the gradual, careful process of restoring trust provided them with something that revenge could never offer: a future that inspires hope and purpose. Mason was loved by two parents who adored him deeply. Raphael was reclaiming his company and his legacy. Finally, Victoria had laid to rest the resentment that had weighed heavily on her for 8 long years. It was not perfect. There continued to be difficult days, tough discussions, and instances where the echoes of the past surfaced without prior warning. However, now they confronted them side by side, embracing truth instead of deception, and showing kindness instead of harshness. Ultimately, this became the most profound form of retribution. It was not about defeating her enemy, but about giving birth to a life so exquisite that it surpassed anything she could have imagined during her darkest moments.